All right, YouTube is up and running, and I'm going to, I'll start out with just having the score logo up.
Now the up front, is this going to be local, district, or regional?
I have no idea.
Because the last one I hosted, it was well district, and I had to do a different upfront slide set. But
I've got the upfront slides I always use, and maybe I'll get beat up for it, but I think that these are pretty good yet, and it's enough that people know enough about score, and I'm going to show our website.
okay,
Um, and we got 2
now
minutes.
the one I used last month did not have any Cleveland reference.
I'm just looking real quick. The only Cleveland reference is I am pulling up the our website, but the thing is that it's basically the same no matter who
Yeah, yeah.
pulls it
Oh,
up.
I don't have a problem with it. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
I was confused the last time which ones to use.
Ah,
They
okay.
have they have a that who is it down in Akron? What's her name? Sim. She recommends a district one.
Hmm. I don't have one to utilize, so looks like we got people standing by, and
Okay,
so I'm going to hit start webinar, and we'll go from there.
great. Take care. I'm going on mute.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bob Cohen from SCORE. We'll get started in just a minute or two. I just want to make sure that there's enough time for people who are in the process of joining, get on. So bear with us for a minute. We'll get started. And thank you all for sharing your lunch hours with us. I'm going to wait exactly 1 minute, and at 12:01, we will get started. While you're waiting, if you all wouldn't mind putting in the chat whether or not you are in the process of starting a business or have an idea for a business or have a business going. And if you have a business going, and if you have an idea for a business, it'd be interesting to see what specifically you have in mind. So just let us know the type of business that you think that you're thinking about starting, and I'll try to look at these as we go along. But it gives me a good idea of maybe how to gear the workshop as we start. So somebody's in R&D phase. That's good. This is perfect workshop for you. And somebody's consulting, specialty chemicals, food truck. Nice. Anybody else? Art promoter. Ah, in San Antonio. Hi. Planning for death and emergencies and for prison in particular. That's interesting. Casual food, organic food, hardware, AI hardware. Nice. In the process of also somebody's doing a gift shop. So we've got a lot of different businesses coming on, and we'll try to address some things as we go along. Feel free to put questions in the chat I'll try to answer as much as I can. We've got a bunch of people on now, so I will get started. So again, my name is Bob Cohen. I am a SCORE mentor. I've been with SCORE for going on 8 years now, almost, yeah, 8 years, and have worked with, had the pleasure to work with many, many small businesses. I am joined today by Bob Fedor, who I think has got a lot more experience as a SCORE mentor than I do, right? Bob,
I
how
guess
long have you
so.
been?
16 years.
16 years, double what I've been on. So Bob's seen a lot. And both of us, between us, hopefully we'll be able to give you a good workshop. I want to get started. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about SCORE, and then we'll dive right into the workshop. I will try to keep this under an hour so there's time for Q&A, but I will also try to answer as much as I can once I start looking at the chat. So let me get started. So, a little bit about SCORE. We've got the largest network of free volunteer small business mentors in the country. Pardon me. There are some 240 chapters around the country. I'm just going to go on mute for a minute because I don't know why, but I'm coughing a little bit. So, hang on. There we go. About 10 to 12,000 mentors throughout the country as well. And we are all volunteers. And so that means that pretty much everything that we do is free and unlimited for those of you who utilize our services. So we are, here to work with your business from the time you get started, maybe even till the time you cash out of your business. Our mission is to foster small, vibrant business communities through mentoring and education, and that's been our mission for a long, long time. The idea here is that we know small businesses drive our economy. And, with everything that's going on right now, we want small businesses to thrive the best that they can to keep this economy going and to keep everybody from, working and being able to um, pass down family wealth. We think that's really important. So, our job as mentors are to help you to grow those businesses. I mentioned that everything that we do is free. We are a service arm of the SBA. We get a grant through the federal government, small to the individual chapters, but most of that grant goes to keeping SCORE at a national level alive. Anyway, what I really wanted to do before we get started is to quickly show you our website, which I think has got some really valuable resources on it. And I think it's something that you can utilize through your journey, whether you're working with a SCORE mentor or whether you're on your own. There's some great resources here. So the first thing I wanted to show you, I've got it up live on my other screen. Here we go. You can request a local mentor very easily by going here, putting in your zip code, and filling out the instruction forms that are there. And you will either be assigned a mentor directly based on the information that you've put in, or you can actually browse mentor profiles and take a look at the mentors that are out there and pick one that seems to you to be the best apt to work with you in your business. And then also, taking workshops is something that is really important. So whether you're working with a mentor or you're not, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of workshops online that can help you in any stage of your business. So I recommend that when you get a chance, you can go there. The other thing I really wanted to point out here is that there are templates on various products and services that you might consider needing. So business plan templates, as you can see, for a startup business, an established business, there's a business model canvas template, several of them actually, and various financial templates. So the financial templates are set up typically in the way in which you might work with your own finances, particularly for startups. It's nice. And formulas are built in, and you can just put numbers in and it will give you the results going forward. So this is not a bookkeeping system. It's a great way, though, to get yourself started. So I'm going to get out of our website and go back to the actual presentation. So we're talking about startup basics today. This is simple steps for starting your business. And I want you to know going into this that it's a high level overview that, by no means is it complete, and by no means is there enough detail in here for you to actually get your business started. But what it will do is help you figure out how feasible your idea is, and it will give you, if you stay on for all five workshops, and they are, you've probably seen announcements for simple steps 2 and 3 and so on. And I'll walk through what those look like as we go. So this is a high level overview. It will help you figure out whether or not your idea is feasible. It will also give you some exposure to SCORE. And what I would recommend, that if you are in the process of looking at starting up a business, that you go to our website and get a SCORE mentor, and we will work with you on a personal level to help you get your business started. So the very first one is startup basics. And then Bob, who's on with me tonight, or this afternoon, I should say, is going to be talking about business concepts. And business concepts is going to be how you articulate what your business is going to look like, how it's going to work, looking at competition, looking at your industry. And he'll talk about all of the research that goes into doing that. I'll talk about marketing plans in section 3. We'll also talk about putting together financial plans in session 4. And then we will actually have some bankers on the line to talk about some funding options, and also ways that you can look at how to fund your business. So let's get started. I wanted to talk about what you're going to learn today. So some of the benefits of the workshop, you'll see as we go through some of the myths and realities of entrepreneurship, critical success factors, knowing your options, components of business ownership, and how to make it legal. Okay, there's so many businesses start up and don't really look at making it legal. They don't look at what they should be filing with the government, and they certainly don't necessarily look at the ways that they should be collecting taxes and paying taxes at the same time. And that's pretty dangerous. That's a big mistake. And we'll talk a little bit about business plan basics. And there's a self-assessment that you'll do for yourself. And next steps, I'll actually assign you some homework that will help you get started. Um, so, as we go through this, we will talk about the various components here. Let's talk about the benefits. So one thing I want to talk about is that we are actually going to do a case study called Anne's Nursery. You will be given this after this workshop is done today. You'll be sent a link to this. Legal forms of business, which we'll talk about today. Anne's Nursery is a case study. Bob will talk about that in the next session. I'll talk about it in the following session. So when you get an opportunity, I would urge you to read through the business plan and things that have already been written, and you will get for Anne's Nursery. It's a great model. It may not be specifically and exactly what you're doing in your business, but it's a great way to think through how to get your business plan together. Vision statement, and then we're going to talk about small business readiness assessment, and then you will be given a SWOT analysis table for when we talk about marketing in particular. There are other handouts that you will get as we go along. SWOT means strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And you're going to look at your ideas, and you're also going to think about your competition in theirs as well. So this is going to help you to develop a feasibility plan and decide what direction to go with your business plan. It's going to take you through some decision making on putting your business plans together. It's going to provide you with the information to make a go or a no-go decision on your idea. And again, I urge you to work with a mentor that can actually give you some insight into this in much more detail than you'll get in the overview that we're going through this afternoon. And this will give you some key directions that you need to get started. So let's keep going. Let's talk about some myths. As an entrepreneur, you won't have to work that hard or put in that many long hours. And I would absolutely say exactly the opposite. If you're not prepared to put in a lot of time and to get the work done that needs to be done prior to even opening your business, you will be a failure going forward. Um, my products or services are unique and there's no competition. I would argue that you may have a unique concept or you may have a unique platform that you're working with, but something else out there is going to be available as well. You ought to be looking at your competitors very, very closely. And even if you're the first in business in what you're doing, if you're successful, people are going to try and do the same thing or actually improve on what you're doing. Business owners can deduct everything from their taxes. You won't have to pay taxes. That's actually a myth as well. In that, if you're doing poorly, then you're not paying taxes. If you're doing well, you'll be paying taxes. And the things you can write off, the IRS will tell you what's allowable and what isn't. And then as a business owner, you won't have a boss. Well, here I would argue that everybody is your boss. Your employees are your boss, one way or another. Your customers are your boss. People you perform services for are your boss. So, by all means, you are answering to everybody out there when you start your own business, up to and including your spouse and your children, based on how your business actually gets set up and grows. And business owners get to do whatever they want to. Well, yes, probably to a point, but if you're not doing what your customers want, then you probably won't be very successful either. So, just by way of stats, after 2 years, about 24% of new startups fail. And as it goes further and further, and the stats vary by a few percentage points in either direction. After 5 years, about 50% of all businesses fail. And the if you plan your business properly, your chances of success are much greater than if you don't. So here's some critical success factors, and I can't express enough how important it is to understand the field that you're in, to have experience in the field that you're in, to be educated in the field that you're in. And you'll see as you read through Anne's nursery, she is a PhD in horticulture. And she's been out there in the world and she has connections. That's what it takes. Okay, I'm not saying that you need to earn a PhD in what you do, but if you are a chef, if you are working in a restaurant, you don't have restaurant management experience, I would recommend you get it before you decide to open up a business. Strong work ethic, again, if you're not doing the work going into your business and keeping up with your business, you will fail quickly. Effective time management, I don't have to talk about that very much. Ability to manage and multitask, it kind of goes along with effective time management. As a business owner, life is going to be chaotic, and you need to figure out how to manage all of that to get your business going and make your priorities work for you. And certainly the willingness to ask for help from others and take advice. And the reason that's in there is because if you talk to a successful entrepreneur, and I don't care if they're in a multi-billion-dollar company or if they're just 70,000, 100,000, and they're in the direction going towards success, they will have either a mentor or an advisor or somebody else in their business that they can talk to and get advice from. If you do this on your own, I guarantee you, you will not make it. So I would recommend, even if it's people in your business, if it's score mentors, if it's people that you know that are successful in another business, great way to go. And adequate capital. So underestimating the amount of money it takes to get your business up and running to a point where you're profitable and start paying yourself, if you don't allow yourself the time to do that or have the adequate capital to do that, then again, you will fail. So these are some of the most critical success factors that there are in terms of getting your business up and running. So other kinds of things that you want to consider, tools and equipment, leasehold improvements, and these are just a small list of many, many, many things. licenses and permits. And depending on what your business is, if you're a nonprofit, if you're doing something with healthcare, if you're doing something with, just sales, understanding tax, sales taxes and things like that. These are all professional things that you need to look at. Professional fees. If you have an organization that you can belong to that helps you, if you can get certified by taking on professional courses, those are all things that make you stand out, instead of your competitors. And then having working capital. So if you're going into business and you don't think through these things, then again, I mentioned in the prior slide, having adequate capital available is so important. So, financial considerations, how much do you need to live on? Where can you cut back if you need to? Do you have outstanding debt? One other thing you might want to think about as well is what your credit ratings are, especially if you're going to be borrowing money. So if you need to clean that up, now's the time to do that. And then do you have enough money to cover you? This is for 6 to 12 months, but not all businesses are profitable or break even in 6 to 12 months. Think about how long it took Amazon to get up and running, years to get to a point where they were making profit. Okay, now I'm not suggesting that any of us are going to be an Amazon startup, but if you don't have enough money to live on and to keep your business afloat, then it will not make it. So these are all things, as simple as they may sound, that need to be taken into consideration in order to get your business up and running. So now let's talk about the kinds of businesses that are out there. And again, this is a high level overview, and I'm going to give you some, pluses and minuses and some, things that you can talk about and advantages and disadvantages. But again, high level, talk to your score mentor, talk to someone else that's got experience before you make a final decision. And I would also argue that you want to talk to legal counsel and financial counsel before you make a final decision. Because if you don't, then there are things that may be hidden or things you don't know to be looking for that could come back and bite you later on. So, starting a new business from scratch, okay? I don't know if that's the easiest way to go or the hardest way to go, but it has some advantages. Okay, you're not hampered by a previous reputation or technology. You can, make your business whatever it is that you want it to be. So you choose your own location, your name, your branding, you build your relationships, your marketing, all those things you can do pretty much on your own. But the scary part about it is you have no track record. So you can explore new markets and new directions, and maybe you've got the wherewithal to come up with something that's really going to work for you. So, you've got to have some value to what you're going to offer to make it worthwhile. We'll talk about that maybe when we get to the marketing a little bit more. Some disadvantages is that you don't have a customer base, whether you're a service or you're business to business or you're business to consumer, you're starting from scratch. So it's a much bigger risk. You have no history, so you have no track record. You have no idea specifically how the financing is going to work. In other words, what your financial situation will be in year one, year two, year three. And when you put together a business, you're going to want to project out for 3 years. And every time, every moment you get a chance, you want to look at actuals versus what your forecasts were so that you know going forward how to make your forecasts work from what you've already thought through. So you'll learn a lot more about that in the fourth module. So let's talk about buying an existing business. And that may be a great way to go for many people. Okay. So you might be able to find an owner that's ready to sell, ready to retire, but you've got a lot to work with and you've got a lot to worry about and consider going forward as well. So potentially established clientele, suppliers, maybe even a known location. Maybe you're moving in and you're buying the stock and the inventory and maybe some equipment, depending on what type of business. Maybe it's a store and you're buying the fixtures and you're buying the inventory. Those are all good things that you could possibly buy, and you've got tangible goods and services that you can look at, and possibly even a proven formula and a good name. You can review financial records. So if somebody's been in business for many years, you can look back 4 or 5 years and see how they're doing. And, since a business has a track record, it might actually be easier to obtain financing to buy this business and go forward. But there are some many, many disadvantages as well. And here's where you're going to need an attorney and somebody with good financial experience to go through the company and understand whether or not they have legal jeopardy or whether they're in financial straits. And even though they may turn over financial information to you, you need to make sure it's the right information with the right information on it. And that's where a good accountant can help you. So, possible debt, poor reputation, loyalty to the owners, by their customers, and there's ways around getting that. Out of date inventory, or possible even transfer issues, contracts where you can't transfer a client to you. So you need to understand if you're working with somebody that's got contracts with customers, what the clauses are that allow them to transfer to you or allow you to buy from the original owner. So there's a possibility there. Reputation, if they've got a lousy reputation, then that might be a real problem to overcome. Is the inventory obsolete? Will you have an employee issue? So those are all things you need to think about. You also even need to think about insurance and claims and things like that that go along with that. That's where your attorney and or your financial advisor can help you out considerably. Buying a franchise, interesting concept. And I don't see as much franchise buying as perhaps there is available out there in the marketplace. So, you know, the one thing about franchises are that they potentially, if you've got a good franchise or, and you would be the franchisee, then they've got, you become part of a proven system with proven products and services. That's good. Okay. Marketing and sales, you've got the power of the franchisor behind you. Okay. Training and professional guidance. So chances are they will train you. You may not necessarily even need to have as much experience in a field as you would if you're starting from scratch, and access to other franchisees for help. So there are some disadvantages as well. First of all, you don't know, you've got to vet that franchise very, very carefully. There are a couple companies out there, FranNet being one of them, and that's a score partner of sorts that actually does vet maybe 300 to 350 franchises and will actually help you put together the franchise based on your ability to actually do that financially and otherwise. But that's another story. We'll talk about that at another time. But you will have some limited freedom to be your own boss. The franchisor wants you to utilize their products, their systems, and everything else. Think about a McDonald's franchise. You would not be able to put your own hamburgers together, come up with your own meals, or your own combo packages and things like that. You have to utilize the ones that McDonald's has. You're going to pay ongoing royalty fees. Sometimes that's off top line revenue. That also, there may be other fees. You likely pay a marketing fee, but you have to assess those fees versus what you would get in return. And so, again, here's an area where you will be able to get pretty good information from a good franchisor, because most franchisors, before they become a franchise, would end up actually having to run those businesses successfully that they will then eventually franchise. And there are a couple franchise organizations besides FranNet. There's a national organization that is a trade organization about franchises that's well worth looking at. So, your contracts are binding, and that limits your exit options. You need to look at that again with an attorney, and there are many more disadvantages as well as there are advantages that I'm not even going to talk about today. If a franchisor has a bad reputation, their reputation is going to be your problem as well. So that's one other possibility. Home-based businesses, I'm just going to go through this quickly. Many people do, and that's fine. Convenient work location, less overhead, flexible schedule, tax advantages. You can hire people anywhere in the world, particularly if you're working on the internet. You may face some zoning problems. You might be isolated from others. That may or may not be good for some people. Depends on who you are and what your personality is. Difficult finding funding and financing, and potentially family distractions. So I wanted to talk about nonprofits. And if you're thinking about starting a nonprofit, why don't you just text me that you are doing that, and maybe a little bit about that. So there's some advantages and disadvantages. I'm not going to dwell on nonprofits for a long period of time here. SCORE in the Cleveland chapter, as well as other chapters around the region, as well as throughout the country, has many workshops on franchise. I'm sorry, on nonprofits. So with a nonprofit, you've got to go through government regulations. You may qualify for government grants. That's a plus, and foundation grants, protection from liability for the directors and employees. You can pay salaries to an employee and yourself if you're the director. The one disadvantage is that you, as director, assuming you were the director, have to answer to a board. So you need to put together a board, which is, you know, to me, it's an advantage to have a good board that understands your nonprofit and your mission. A nonprofit is basically a mission-based business, and the profit of a nonprofit, if there is such, needs to stay within that nonprofit. It cannot be used to reward employees. It cannot be used to start other businesses. And if you, in fact, fold the nonprofit, that money has to go to another nonprofit. It can't go to any particular individuals for any reason. You need to apply for a 501c, and there's several different indicators. There's one, two, three, and so on. SCORE, for instance, is a 501c3. It's a nonprofit organization with nonprofit status. But there are many other designations out there. So you easily can find that by going online to the IRS site and look at nonprofits, and it'll give you outlines. Or you can work with a SCORE mentor, and a SCORE mentor would be very willing. SCORE's got several mentors that specialize in nonprofits. So I see a few people that are in the process of starting nonprofits. And we will talk about nonprofits as we go along, not necessarily today, maybe in some of the other sections
Bob,
that we
Bob,
discussed.
there's a
Yeah, Bob.
question about public benefit corporations. We are not going to talk about that today.
Correct.
I'd call that social entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and there's some good ones out there, and there's also another organization that we work with. We actually mentor for them. It's an organization called Sea Change, and Sea Change is, it's basically for profits, but with social aspirations. So anyway, so yeah, there are a lot of different designations for nonprofits. Thanks, Bob. So let's talk about some components of owning a small business. Okay. And the very first one is, how do you utilize your time? And I talked about that earlier on, but I just wanted to show it, in somewhat of an outline form. A company that's up and running might have somebody that fulfills each one of these positions, but until you get to that point, it's you, okay, or it's your partner, or you and your partner combined. So um, think about that. You're wearing all the hats going into this. So we're only going to touch on marketing for a minute here. It's going to be covered in detail in workshop 3 in our marketing plan. And we also have multiple workshops on marketing at various levels. What you're going to get in simple steps, again, is an overview. In a few weeks, I don't recall the exact date, we'll be presenting one presentation on marketing basics, but we have several presentations on websites and Google and things like that that all go along with marketing and social media for that matter. But this is just going to be as it relates to Ann's nursery primarily. So, branding, as you already know, name recognition, understanding and qualifying your product or service, market identity, and advertising. We'll get into that later. Sales is a big part of marketing, and marketing leads to sales. And sometimes, if you are a business to business organization, your marketing is going to be totally different than a business to consumer organization or other types of manufacturers and things like that. So, understanding and how to find prospects, whether that's coming in through a website or that's coming in through a direct sales call or any one of, hundreds of ways to get prospects. Understanding how to make presentations and prepare bids, and close deals, and process orders. Very small part of sales. But do you have the skills that it takes to put this together? If you don't, I mean, think about the areas that you're strong and weak in. Bear with me because I think I'm yeah, there we go. And if you do have weaknesses, you got to figure out a way to shore them up. Okay. Can you take courses? Can you improve your skills? If there are things that don't fit your skills, can you find somebody to do that for you? I work with an organization that is a startup, and this startup is so promising that there are several people that are standing in line actually to help this organization out, and they're doing it free of charge. And so they're actually supplementing some of the things that this organization needs with the future intent of becoming part of this business. So there are many, many ways to figure that out. So even if you're skilled in all of the roles, you won't necessarily have time to handle them all. You need to figure out how to utilize your time. Now, when you're talking about your product and your service, who's using your product? Who needs it? What is it about your product that fulfills a need? You need to think about that as you go through, and we'll talk about that in more detail. Bob will talk about that certainly next week, and I'll talk about that in marketing as well. Why they need it, because that's going to be important to understand what their pain points are as you begin developing your marketing message. And then how is it different or better than your competitor? So, in other words, we need to talk about how to understand and know your competitors and what is your value proposition, what makes you better than a competitor. And I talked about a SWOT analysis earlier on. We'll talk about that in more detail going forward. But that means strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So let's talk about competition. I can't tell you how important it is to know your competition as well as you know your own business. Depending certainly on the type of business that you're in, but understanding the size of that operation, the number of employees, their prices, their quality, service provided, reputation, strengths, weaknesses, all those things that are on that SWOT analysis, and then actually going to and talking to your competitors. And they don't have to know who you are specifically. I used to call my competitors and ask them actually to look at a proposal that I would give them to fill out, and they'd come back to me and it would give me some wonderful insight into what I was doing right or wrong with my business. And then I'm going to take a quick look at the time. We're in pretty good shape. Understanding suppliers and contracts, and then certainly other businesses in the area. We're going to talk about competition in a lot of detail going forward. Let's talk about making it legal. There is a form that you will get in email probably today that actually will give you much more information on this. But you can also go to, if you're in Ohio, and I'm sure every state has something similar, ohio.gov, and there's a tab on business and startups. It will actually give you much more detail on any of these types of partnerships or sole proprietorships, limited liability companies. Most of our clients are probably limited liability companies. And I'm not telling you which one to go to. I would say that maybe you talk to an attorney and or a financial planner or a financial expert to figure out what's best for you. But I would say keep it simple. So a sole proprietorship or partnership, um, if you start up a sole proprietorship, you're the owner, or a partnership, you and your partner are the owners. You can go into business tomorrow. You can make up a name for yourself. You should go online and see if that name is taken. And if it isn't, and you decide to utilize it, fine. But keep in the back of your mind that you are personally liable for anything that could potentially come to you as a lawsuit. And I'm just looking. Okay. So I'll go back to Deborah, your question in a little bit, but let me keep going. You want to be able to limit your liability, and so instead of you being sued personally as the owner, then the suit would actually sue your company, so they would be entitled to however much your company is worth, depending on what type of lawsuit it is. But they couldn't go after you personally, your home, and other things like that. But there are some um, areas where that can actually be cracked. But for the most part, you pretty good. You can go online and get your limited liability corporation or an S corporation or even a C corporation by again going to ohio.gov, and I think that'll be in your resources to take a look at that. Keep it simple. Understand what business licenses you need, what labor laws are out there, immigration laws, IRS and Social Security, withholding payments and things like that, taxes and all the other things that go along with starting a business in the government. We have many clients. I shouldn't say many. We have some clients that have gone into business and gone in and just gone in and started up and are very successful, but they haven't paid taxes in 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, whatever it is, or they don't have workers' comp, or they're not taking out, they've got everybody, signed up as contractors and not employees. Well, there's laws around all of that. And you need to understand those laws if you are going to hire employees. So, make sure that you've got all the licenses and all the approvals that you need to get your business going. And we do, on a fairly regular basis, offer law workshops that will walk you through some of this stuff. But also you can work through it with your mentor. Insurance considerations, and that's really important. Property liability, all the things here, workers' comp, health, life, business interruption, etc. Other things I would look at is if you have a partnership that you have key, I don't know if it's man or key person is the name of the insurance, but you're insuring yourself and your partner. You don't want, particularly if you're relying heavily on a partner in your business, if your partner's gone, what are you going to do? Okay. The other things I would also talk about, if you're going into partnerships or you're bringing people in and hiring them, that you do it in a very legal way, that you have contracts with partners so that you understand what happens if you need to sell the business, what happens if somebody dies in the business, what happens if somebody can no longer work in the business. So those are all things to consider going forward. You don't necessarily have to start them in the very beginning, but I wouldn't wait too long before I got involved in understanding that. All right, so for the next 15, 20 minutes, let's talk about business plans, and then we will kind of wrap it up. So why would you put together a business plan? And I always say it encourages an objective view. When you put together your business plan, you don't want your business plan to be aspirational. You want it to be analytical. You want it to be something that you can go in and actually analyze and decide whether your business is going to work or not. Not on how excited you are about the concept or how excited you are about selling or how excited you are about marketing or any of those things. You really need to look at it from an analytical perspective. Another area where a score mentor can help you. It becomes the foundation for your planning. Okay. So when you sit down and you're thinking through a business plan, you're thinking through things that you may not have thought about when you first got your idea. It's a great management tool in that it's fluid and you can look at it going forward. And you can look to see how you stand up against it. And it's a fluid document that you can make changes to, and you can pivot based on where you're trying to get to. And it communicates your ideas. So, for instance, if you're going to get financial assistance from a bank, a funder, any kind of lender, any kind of a partner, you want to be able to really communicate what your business is going to do. It'll communicate the financial parts of it and the marketing parts of it. So it's really important for a startup that is going to look for funding.
Bob, there's a question from the lady about uh, going to the bank before she has detailed information about where to build, in this case, a laundromat, I guess.
Ah,
Uh,
that's a great question. Bob,
and
do you want to answer that?
well, I would just say you first of all, you should always have relationships with the bank, and you should have a banker. Uh, but a banker is not going to take seriously any request for a loan until you have a specific plan. So you
Agreed.
have to at least say give examples or options. Maybe there's one, two, or three different locations and costs, but you got to have a specific plan, or you're wasting the bank. They won't take you seriously.
No, in terms of actually getting along, you're absolutely right, Bob. I agree with you that you should have a working relationship with a bank one way or another so that at that point in time, you can sit down with that lending officer from the bank and you might already know them or they might know you through your accounts and so on. And then, go from that point forward. Um,
In other words, it's never a bad time to talk to your bankers,
Never.
but you're
Yep.
not going to be taken seriously on a loan until you have a specific plan.
Yep. Agree. Agree. So, here's an outline. There are so many ways you can do a business plan. There's so many business plans out there. There's commercial ones. There's ones you can fill out on your own. You can even use Chat GPT. We do utilize Chat GPT a lot. You want to make sure, though, that Chat GPT or any AI tool that you use has the ability to narrow down what you want to a point where it sounds like you put it together and not just some sort of, um, you know, um, everyday, piece that anybody can get. So, um, what I did want to talk about, and this leads to the question that you just answered, Bob, that every owner should have a banker, a lawyer, accountant, insurance agent, and a business mentor in their in their in their back pocket, so to speak. And the reason being is that we mentioned it before. When you're ready to go to the bank and you want to sit down with the banker and you already got accounts and you already know people, you got a leg up. And we do multiple workshops whereby we talk about how to go to a bank, what to say to a bank, and what the bank does with what you do and say. And so, making your plan bankable. We look for workshops in that. And, these workshops already exist online if you don't want to take a live workshop. So go in and take a look at that. But it's good to know what banks look for.
Yeah,
I mentioned,
our fifth session will be on that specific issue and how to
yes,
prepare yourself for the bank. And Dan Toll is one of our mentors and an expert on
yeah,
the.
yeah. Yeah, he's a banker as well as formerly with the SBA. So accountants, and a lawyer for that matter. I can't say enough about them. I know that you might think that they're expensive, but if you get the right lawyer and they help you out in the right way, they may have saved you money that would be impossible to recoup if you got into a lawsuit or you didn't have the right paperwork or you weren't prepared. Same thing with an accountant, insurance agent. You might think that having insurance is not really important, but depending on the type of business you're in, it surely could be. And certainly a mentor, uh, whether it's a score mentor or someone else, I cannot stress enough how important that is. So, there is a small business readiness self assessment that you will get today in the email. Do this for yourself, okay? Award yourself some points here. You might, as you go through the rest of the courses, find that you've actually learned things that you can do this again and reward yourself some more points. What I would like you to do is write a little bit of a vision statement about your business. What's the overall purpose of your business? What are you trying to achieve? Why are you going into business? You might also think about, what niche, if not a niche, or what pain points, or what it is in the marketplace that you can fulfill. What need is there for what you want to do? And then describe the products and services of your business. Explain a little bit about why, again, it's important, and maybe a little bit about the values you'd like to put into your business. And this may sound like first grade work. It's not. It's a great way for you to begin thinking through what you're going to do with your business. So before I take questions, um, I recommend you sign up for the rest of the simple steps stuff. Work on your business plan. I mentioned before, Bob's going to talk about business concepts next. Here's an opportunity to look at a go or a no-go decision. So that's it for that. Let's look at questions. I've got what,
Bob,
12
Bob, I'm
minutes.
going to start with the question on the public benefit corporation. Um,
Oh, yeah,
that I did a little research as you were talking, and depends state by state, but those are you have to go through the normal for-profit business process, whether it's an LLC or a corporation, etc. But if it's then you incorporate your social benefit into the uh, charter of your business and you make it legally required. And that's how you could sell that. X amount of your profit will go to a societal benefit or environmental benefit, etc. But they're fairly new. They vary state by state, but they're still a for-profit business and governed by the rules of corporations.
yeah, yeah. Now, for-profit businesses can get grants, but it's got to be done through a nonprofit and it's got to be administered through that nonprofit. We have one or two clients that do very well getting grants because they do have a social enterprise, but they're getting the grants through a different source, through a nonprofit that they're partnering with. Any other questions, Bob, you want to go through?
No,
Let's see what else. Public benefit, a couple others on public benefits. Um, Somebody's working with a mentor. They're in their business plan. They're stuck doing projected profit.
yeah,
And
Bob, that's the one I addressed with respect to
okay,
when you go to a bank.
gotcha, gotcha,
You
gotcha.
got to have a
Okay,
business plan before you go
yep,
to,
yep, yep,
but you should have a banking relationship.
yep, yep. So, when you talk with your mentor, talk about putting together a 3-year projection based on sales that you are about to do. They will have to be forecasted sales, and they need to be realistic. And you may want to look at a 3-year plan, and you might want to look at it month over month over month in those 3 years. And your mentor should be able to get you there without any issue at all. Any other questions?
Well, there's one on public businesses, multiple businesses in a trust. We'd have to hear, you'd need a mentoring to have to get into details on that.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
very complicated.
yeah. Well, looks like we got 9 minutes left. If there are any other questions, by all means, please ask now, and then we can wrap up. I don't
And
see
see
anything
you
in the
next
chat.
week.
Yeah, yeah. So Bob will be on next week. I will be sitting where Bob is right now, as his co, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Just
Oh,
got one new
hold
message,
on.
two new
Software
messages.
coming.
Okay.
I can't.
How can we enroll in other segments? So the other sessions that are coming up, um, you should have received an email on those. If not, I'm guessing you will again this week. If not, go to the website and look for upcoming workshops. So score.org/Cleveland, and go to the workshop tab. If you don't get anything, by all means, feel free to send me a text or a note. My email address is available online as well, and I'll send it to you. I'll send you the link, but you
Yeah,
should get
Bob,
one in the mail.
there's a question from Vince on starting that right down your alley. Starting a software company, needs to be able to price and check. He needs competition information,
Yeah.
but it's a private company
Mhm.
organization.
Well, we need to get some more particulars on that. Bob's going to talk about research next week a little bit, particularly in industry research. And there is information available on some private companies. There are databases that you can go to through your local library that might be available for free, one of which might be Dun and Bradstreet. And some information may be collected, even if it is a private company. You just won't be able to look at corporate taxes or taxes that are filed in particular that way. So, you may have to do other research out there. And there's so many ways of getting research, some of which you have to pay for, some of which is free.
Well, you should be able to find customers of that platform
Yep.
and talk to them.
Yep. Yep. And Bob, you're going to talk about industrial classifications next week.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
And knowing the industrial classification of your competitor, then you could take the industrial classification of that competitor and look at many, many other databases. Data Axle is a great one. And I don't want to get into it in any detail, but you can get Data Axle through any public library online.
Okay, there's another question from Dave on um, trying to set up for retirement income. How do you incorporate that into your business plan and projections?
Um, that's an excellent one. You need to, if I'm putting together a business plan right now, I'd be looking at minimum 3 years out, maybe 5 years out. Now, if you're planning to do a workout and retire within that period of time, then your business plan should incorporate that. If you're looking at retiring in 20 years and putting together that, uh, you know, um, uh, retirement funds and things like that, that's benefits that you're going to offer up not only to yourself and perhaps to your customers. I'm sorry, to your employees, and you probably need to work with either a financial planner and or your mentor in order to figure out where you need to go with those things. But many of those might be related to your benefits.
Well, I would call this an exit strategy, is what he's looking for.
Yeah, yeah,
And it depends on your time frame, depends on the type of business you've started. Is it saleable or are you going to keep it in the family, whatever, whatever. With your financial advisor and a mentor, you go through those options. Uh, it all comes down to what's the value of the business you're coming up with. And when you want to exit, how do you turn that value of that company into retirement income for you?
yep, agree.
Okay, you're saying he's 5 to 10 years from retirement, wants to build a business. That's 10 years makes more sense. It takes time, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You need to work with an advisor on the outside for that. The mentors internally are not allowed to give personal advice on things like taxes and legal advice and things like that. But we can point you to the right people.
And we could estimate the value of the company
Yeah,
based on your business plan, and that's really what it comes down to. You to have a stream of income in retirement, you need to have a valuable asset to get it from.
yeah, yeah. You know, in a lot of family businesses, for instance, the retirees are still on payroll. So you know that's a whole nother area. So any other questions? Okay. Well, again, I want to thank you for having spent your lunch hour with us. Hopefully, you got some value out of what we presented. I'd like to see you all next week. That'd be wonderful. And Bob's got some great information that I think will help you to figure out what direction to go in with your businesses as well. So, thank you and look forward to speaking with you next week.
Take care.